I always like to say you should always be trying to replace yourself. So whatever you're doing today, who's that next person that's coming up to replace you? Because you can't move up until someone does your job or that task. Time is the best way to shepherd people. And you're gonna have to make time for your top people. It's making them think I'm basically coaching that person. It's not like I know the answer. The problem is that when you give them the answer, they're constantly coming to you for that answer. And the more people you train to like, hey, here's my monkey, take care of it. Then all of a sudden you're babysitting a bunch of monkeys. Once you get to that perspective of like, it's going to take more time, but that time is going to be more, it's going to have an ROI on it down the road.
Welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and today I am joined by Rocky Cherry. Rocky serves as the Chief Growth Officer at Cherry Coatings since September 2009, where responsibilities include overseeing business development and the expansion efforts within the United States. Prior to this role, Rocky Cherry held the position of Vice President, contributing to various operational aspects of the family-owned business, initially focusing on estimating and accounting before moving into project management and training. Rocky Cherry also has a professional baseball background, having pitched for the Chicago Cubs, Baltimore Orioles, and the New York Mets. Rocky Cherry earned a degree in construction science and construction management from the University of Oklahoma, following education at Coppell High School. So without further ado, let's get into this conversation with Rocky. First of all, I love my book my dad gave me when I was 18 that I didn't read, if I'm honest, until I was 25. Was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of the key tenets of effective people is start with the end in mind. So I want to start with the end in mind with you. Something I've heard you say is that your dad is 76 and still walks jobs. When you're 76, do you still plan on doing that? Or what does 76-year-old Rocky Cherry look like?
Well, first off, he's 80, about to be 81. So we got to give him credit where credit's due.
Is he still walking jobs at 81?
Yeah, he's still walking jobs. And it's kind of amazing because it shows the resiliency and the dedication and just the grit that he has as a human. And he cares so much about his people that he's constantly trying to shape them, mold them. He cares about the company deeply. And it's just amazing to see that. And from that, what I will relate that to is that I'm not sure I'll be walking jobs when I'm 80, but I do know that I'll be carrying on the same impact that he is doing, wanting to make people better, wanting to provide wisdom and knowledge to them to help them shape their lives where they maximize it. They grow personally, spiritually, professionally. And so I think that I will always be on that journey in following his footsteps of making people's lives better.
At PCA, when I heard you speak, you were talking about you came into the family business through estimating and accounting, not the corner office. Was that Pat's design? And what did that teach you in like the way that you've learned or another way it could have gone?
So a lot of people probably assume that my brother and I were handed the silver spoon, but instead we were handed a paintbrush. And so we were able to go out when we were early in our teens. We were working in the field, learning how to paint, sanding walls, caulking base, just doing everything you would think of that a painter does. And the thing that my dad was trying to teach us there was that, A, don't be a painter. And the reason why he was saying that is because it's hard work. And there's things that we've got to go get an education, go do something different. And because he grew up in the field and he made the most of it, and he made a great successful company. The problem is that I always wanted to be like dad. And so all it did was encourage me to say like, hey, we're learning it from the ground up. And thank goodness we did. And so even when we came into the business, my brother started in accounting, I started in accounting. He had us start and understand every aspect of the business. The reason why he had us trying to understand every aspect of the business was because he had gotten beat so many times. So he had a secretary in the 80s that would get the bank statement, and she would open up the bank statement and she would mess with some of the pages of the checks that she was fraudulently writing to herself. And then she would reseal it up and hand it to my dad, and he would look through this bank statement and be like, oh, okay, everything looks like it checks out. And those kind of tactics were things that people are really good at doing things wrong. And if they took that energy and put it into doing things right, who knows where the world would be today. But he wanted us to know every aspect so we wouldn't get beat by somebody. So we were experts in accounting. We were experts in every aspect of that, whether it was payroll, insurance, all the back of the house. And then we moved into estimating, project management. He made us earn it. And that's what made us successful. And that's the same thing that we carry today with our people. Sometimes we've had people that come in with a great resume. They've been in corporate America. They understand business, leadership. They read books. They're well educated. But at the end of the day, if they don't know our business, they struggle to be as good as they could. And so a lot of times we tell people like, hey, you want to come into this business, you got to start at the bottom and kind of learn it all the way up. Now, they don't have to get down to the depths that we did of actually being in the field and potentially doing accounting. But we do think that it's beneficial for them to spend some time in the field. And the people that we've had do that and the people that are willing to have that grit always seem to be our most successful people.
There's like an appreciation for the craft and the hard work that goes into it when you're managing the people that then do that.
For sure. And also, the more respect you earn from people, they know you've been there, that you've done that, you can talk their language, you understand what they're going through. It just creates that much of a better working relationship.
Yeah. Is it your phrase or description of like, go figure it out? Is that a thing that your dad would say, or is that like a Cherry Coatings approach or style, a value?
No, it's really just my dad. A lot of things my dad and my brother, our dad, did was, I will say, he stumbled upon greatness at times. Now, he was always a hard worker. He was always wise. He was an amazing leader. But sometimes the things that he did was ahead of his times. And I don't know if he did that on purpose or if he was just kind of fell into it. And that's why I say that. But at the end of the day, the letting go was something that was so valuable, and it was such a big lesson to us, because a lot of times I hear about businesses failing in the second generation, especially third generation. And a lot of times what I think the stem of the problem is, or the root cause, is because people don't let go. I think it's harder to let go than to have control, because when you have control, you feel better, right? People tend to have so much anxiety because they try to control everything. But when you kind of let go, it's like it releases you a little bit. And I think that with him allowing us to let go, I think it took some off of his shoulders. It allowed him to think bigger vision, looking at bigger picture, because sometimes when you're in the minutia and in the weeds, it's hard to see the forest through the trees. And so I think that he came across that because it was what was presented to him and it seemed like it worked. And he wanted to give us opportunity to fail, because we think that failure is such an important, impactful opportunity for people to truly learn it and grasp it. And so I'll say that's what we've probably taken as Cherry Coatings is letting go is one way to say it, but we want people to fail. And not in a bad way. We want them to fail in a way that allows them to learn from it and grow from it and become stronger. And I'm sorry I'm long-winded, but it makes me think about, when you bid a job for new construction, you have your schematic drawings. When I turn that bid in, it's not as impactful. Yes, I'm trying to give the owner a budget and the general contractor a budget, trying to get around the right price. But at the end of the day, no one's really going to hold me accountable. There's nothing that's going to be impactful that's going to like ruin the job for me or anything like that. Then you kind of get to the 90% drawings, and that's a little bit more, hey, you better dial it in, you better be closer. But there's impact, but not still what it's like when you actually have 100% drawings. They're awarding it off of this set of drawings, and your number matters. And so I think that there's places for people to fail in those first two phases that are, it's okay. No one's going to get hurt, but the impact was great. They learned a lot. But there's certain points where we have to be like, okay, this is a more permanent decision, and we need to coach you guys through this and work through this. So I think you got to have a good balance.
Are you familiar with, James Dyson, the vacuum guy?
I know the Dyson. I have a Dyson vacuum. I know that.
There's a really cool story that I heard of his like first boss, Jeremy Fry. They were in like manufacturing for boats and stuff. And you imagine like this guy who's like invented like supposedly 2000 different iterations of the vacuum before he like found it, kind of like a Thomas Edison type person. And he credits a lot of this thinking and his approach to this original boss of his that basically, he had a problem and gave it to James, and James is like, I mean, like, how am I supposed to do this? And he's like, there's a lake out back, there's boats over there, all the tools are in the shop. Like, let me know if you have like, let me know when you're stuck or you hurt yourself. It's basically like, he was like, oh, okay. And he just go out and start tinkering. And it was like that. There's so much failure that happens when you are given an environment like that, right? Clear direction, like this is the thing we need, this is the outcome that we want. Now go figure it out. And it sounds like there's a like when I heard that description of that, it was like, ooh, that's like there's a ton of wisdom and like business strategy around figuring out how do we give people that metaphorical, like here's the shop, there's the lake, you know, like you need to wrestle with the problems and fall down hundreds, sometimes thousands of times in micro ways to get the outcome and then ultimately be a better asset to the business.
For sure. I mean, I always like to think about the Michael Jordan. Out of all the last minute, last second shots that he made, he'd had like infinitely more misses. And we remember him for his greatness of the
Shots.
20 something shots or 10 shots. I don't even know how many it is, but yet there was hundreds of missed opportunities that he had. And so I kind of look at it the same way, that we want to celebrate those wins, but also we want to celebrate those misses and say like, hey man, keep going. I want that ball in your hand every time when there's a few seconds left.
I know that you've said you want to impact people personally, professionally, and spiritually. How, like, when you have a business that's in Dallas and you can know everybody by name and know their kids, there is a scale problem that comes into like it just requires different tools, different strategies. How do you do that across 10 states and 15 cities at this point?
That's a great question, Chris. What it makes me think about is a family. So if I'm a father and I have this heart for caring for others and serving others, and I train or not train, but I help shepherd my children and my wife to believe the same things. They see the action that I take and how I care for others. Then all of a sudden they become servants. And what happens is their kids become servants, right? And it just becomes this generational change where it just becomes everybody is doing exactly what I was originally doing if they believe in it and they see there's fruit from it and they understand it. And so to simplify this is that you can't do it in 10 states and 15 cities, but you can do it when you hire the right people, you train, and you make it the center of everything you do. Like, hey guys, this is who we are. We are hiring off these core values. We're firing off these core values. We are living this out. It's not just a word or something that's put on the walls, but it is exactly how we represent ourselves. And so what happens is we've got leaders in every city that represent what we stand for. And those people then have leaders underneath them, and they hire those people and train those people and keep showing them how they act. And it becomes this, it becomes like almost I'm not going to say a cult, but it's just like everybody is doing it now. And so you just got to get it to leaders. Leaders got to pass it down to their leaders got to pass it down to their leaders until it hits every aspect. And then it carries that legacy on.
What's been the hardest? I'm speaking from my own experience, that like the challenge that I run into And so we have, I've got 10 employees in our tech business, and they all, there's different skills that I have to have now that I'm facilitating than when it was just me and, a developer. But as you continue to grow and you get 100 employees, 200, 300, it's like the role of the entrepreneur is to constantly just be uncomfortable and evolving and learning. It's like I've heard someone say, I don't know if this resonates with you or not, but it's like your job is to like systemize and figure out how to do something that you previously didn't know how to do. And then as soon as you know how to do it, you probably are handing that off to somebody else, and you got to go figure out the next thing that you don't know how to do and systemize that thing. What has been the biggest like challenge personally in that process of that repetitive like pain cycle as a leader and just like pushing yourself into the next tier of leadership?
Yeah, I always like to say you should always be trying to replace yourself. So whatever you're doing today, who's that next person that's coming up to replace you? Because you can't move up until someone does your job or that task. What I would say, time is the best way to shepherd people. And you're going to have to make time for your top people, have one on ones, create goals or help them create goals, hold them accountable to their goals, uh, ask them questions like, hey, what's working well? What's not working well? Just constantly seek feedback when you have opportunities. Say, hey, what would you do here? This morning I was talking to somebody and I said, hey, what's your strategy on selling this job? And he was like, well, I'd probably go at this percentage and to this percentage. And I was like, okay, but why? And it was just the fact that it's making them think I'm basically coaching that person. It's not like I know the answer. I know exactly what the strategy needs to be or what I think it should be. And sometimes people are smarter than me and they give me better ideas. And I go, oh, that actually is a better idea. But constantly be coaching, but you've got to spend time. If you're not spending time, if you don't have that time allocation in your day, you're going to run right past that because someone's going to come into you and they're going to be like, hey, what should I price this job at? And you're going to just go, this percentage, and you're going to move on instead of going, opportunity for me to coach.
So it's pausing, just like take a minute. Okay, I want to say this. What's the coaching angle here?
You got to have time, time that you want to spend with them, knowing that you're going to allocate time to them. That could be scheduled, but then also you got to have time that will help you catch them on a spur of a moment where you're not moving in 15 different directions. You're not moving too fast, but you actually have time to listen. You have time to coach. You have time to strategize with them and help them understand in those moments will help take things off of your plate. So a lot of times what we think as leaders is like, I can solve this problem and get to the next task ASAP if I give them the answer. The problem is that when you give them the answer, they're constantly coming to you for that answer. And the more people you train to like, hey, here's my monkey, take care of it. You fix it, change his diaper, feed it, burp it, hand it back to them. Then all of a sudden you're babysitting a bunch of monkeys and taking care of their monkeys instead of letting them take care of it themselves. And so once you get to that perspective of like, it's going to take more time, but that time is going to be more like it's going to have an ROI on it down the road.
It's making me. There's a. Have you ever heard of the phrase in business, statement before question?
I have heard of that, but remind me exactly what the meaning behind was.
When you go in, someone says like, "Hey, how should I price this job?" And if I say, "Well, what do you think you should do?" That tone or any question really of like, I don't know. What should you do? Like if you say a statement of any kind and then you ask the question, it makes them way less defensive. So it's like if someone's saying like even you being like, "Well, why'd you do it that way?" That can make them be like, "Oh shoot, I just did I screwed up," instead of like, "Ooh, this is interesting. I have a thought, but rather than me telling you, I'm going to ask you a couple questions so I can understand where you're coming from to make sure that I don't have any blind spots. So, why did you do that?" So it's like giving any sort of statement or context of where you're at before you ask is like first of all, it takes more time, right? I mean, it takes even more contemplation. So I'm wondering, Is that something that you kind of like? Everybody knows that when I go to Rocky and he grills me with questions, he's not attacking me. He's not. I didn't do anything wrong. Is this like a prerequisite that you've just made established? Like, hey, I'm going to be asking you guys lots of questions. It doesn't mean you're wrong or you're dumb. I just am trying to understand how I can best help you become better or something like that. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. So what I would say to that is that how you ask the question is very important in the words that you use. So when you ask somebody a why question, it is attaching to them some sort of personal responsibility. Like, why are you pricing it that way? If we change the why to what or how, it becomes a different perspective. How did you come up with that? What was your thought process on that? There is no, it's not as much like, why
Attacking
did you,
you. Like,
attacking, correct. And so I literally practice saying what and how questions. Like I try to eliminate why out of my vocabulary unless I'm mad at you. Like, why did you do that? I'm disappointed in you, right? And so I even try to practice this with my kids, with my wife, because it's easy for people to get defensive when you're maybe potentially, even though you feel harmless, you're really just asking them a question. You really want to coach them. You really want good from it, but they tend to take it as like, oh, this could be a personal attack on me. And so try to reframe the why to a what and a how.
I love that. I love any other like tactics of there's like, in my experience, there's been a few those frameworks, those mental models of just like, here's like the you could read the book that's going to take you 6 hours, or just remember these two things. Do you have other things like that that have resonated or stuck with you over time?
I'm sure there's so many of them that I just might not be able to think off the top of my head, but never split the difference is where I got the what and how questions, which is written by Chris Voss. And what Chris Voss does is he's a expert negotiator in the highest tensions of conflict, where someone literally robbed a bank, they're holding people hostage, people could die. And he is supposed to connect with them on a emotional level when they're at the height of their emotional state, which typically when people are in a high emotional state, it's hard to negotiate with. And so through those repetitions, he was one of the best. He learned how to communicate in a high emotional stress. So there's some great principles around that book. So what and how questions. Another one out of that book is using looks like, sounds like, seems like. So a lot of times, let's just say we're talking and you ask me like, what do you think about, I'm trying to think of a good situation. So my wife and I are fighting, right? And my wife says, you don't listen to me, right? And this is why you don't listen to me. And she's telling me like, you don't listen to me because you're thinking about work and whatever. And I go, okay, what I heard you say was that you don't listen to me. I'm not listening to you because I don't really care what you're doing. That's not what I said. And things escalate because we're trying to summarize what we just heard, but their emotions, even though we're saying what they're saying, it's hard to correlate them because they're in an emotional state and it's hard to just be on the same page. But if you use looks like, sounds like, or seems like, so for example, in that same situation, I goes, sounds like you're frustrated with me because I potentially put other things in front of you. It's not me saying it. It sounds like it. And if she's like, that's not what I said, I'm like, okay, great. Well, what did you say? Help me understand it, right? So I'm still engaging her, letting her talk, letting her vent, not trying to fix it. Like the old nail in the forehead where they show like the big nail in the forehead.
It's not about the nail yet.
Yeah, I have a headache. It's like, let me pull the nail out. And she's like, no, my head hurts. I'm like, well, let me pull the nail out. And it's like, they don't want to fix it. They just want you to listen and be there. And so that tactic, I think in that book is one of my favorites that I use constantly is looks like, sounds like, seems like, and it always provides a way out. If I say, I heard you say this, or I thought you said this and you get it wrong, there's no returning. Where if it seems like you said this, sounds like you did this, it if you get it wrong, you're like, oh, it just sounded like that. Help clarify so I can understand. So there's always like a way to get out where you're never escalating the situation. So that's probably one other one that I'd say is a real good one that I think helps people.
I love the Never Split the Difference book is just a great, the mirroring is like,
Oh, the mirroring.
it's just a great, for in every single area of my entire life. It's like, and even when you're not trying to sell something, it's like when you need someone to explain something better, just repeating back the word that they just said is like, and when you become aware of it, it's like, what do you mean by that? Then they, instead of just saying mirroring, and it's that tactic is just like, it's so valuable in sales and business leadership with your kids, everyone. It's just, it works over and over again.
So valuable. In fact, that is one of the most difficult ones to do because you have to literally say back the words that they are using. But when you do, it validates them so much. Another one that you probably don't, you might remember is silence. Just having that, we're in the middle of a conversation, negotiating, whatnot, and then you talk about, well, we'd like to offer this, and you just kind of pause. And it causes them to keep talking because the goal is to get as much information as possible, especially in negotiations. And so when you pause, which is very difficult when you're in a room, it's pretty amazing. I remember one time, I'm going to tell you this quick story, but we were in an interview in a new city, and this client was like, "Why would we use you guys? Like, we've got these other people that we've used for years and years and years that we have all this history with. You guys can come up and interview, but I just don't know why I would ever use you guys." And I go, hey team, we have nothing to lose here. So let's just try to put this never split the difference theory to test. And so we're going to go in there, and all we're going to do is mirror, ask questions. And if they ask us a specific question that we need to answer, we will answer it. But as soon as we answer it, ask them another what or how question. And let's, just pause, let them keep talking. Literally, we sat in an interview for like an hour. All we did was ask questions. We maybe answered a few questions. Well, hey, how many men do you think it's going to take to do this job? Answer the question. We think it's going to be about 15 to 25 people. What do you think? And they would go on for like 10 minutes talking about it. And we'd mirror them through that. And we would, so sounds like you think 15 to 20 is a good number. Yeah, that's exactly. We got out of that interview, and literally the team, we won the job, and the team that we were interviewing with was like, that was one of the best interviews I've ever been a part of. Like, we are so excited to work with you. And now we're like their top painter. And all we did was ask questions.
Yeah.
That's right. We just listened.
They felt heard finally.
That's right.
How many other subs or companies come in and just, you're trying to sell, you're trying to convince them, and it's like, you don't even understand what I'm asking you to do. And then you come in and they've expressed everything. You've said all the words that they just said. They're like, these guys get it, And whether or not you got it before, it doesn't matter because they don't think you get it,
Yeah, for sure.
I think I dug this up. You measure your relationship with a GC by how you get paid on change orders. Can you unpack that?
Well, I don't know if I said that or not, but I probably did.
Yeah. To me, I'm like, the change order conversation with commercial painters is a really, I don't know. I just find that very, very interesting in the relationship of like, maybe this is like, yeah, how do you view that? Or as you're thinking about this, what does that tell you about a GC or the strength of your relationship or whatever?
I do think that statement's true. And the reason why I say that is because most of the time, a majority of your change orders are going to be what you call ticket work. And so when you're filling out ticket work, time and material is another way for it. They're always questioning whether you really put that time and material on it. And so there's always been this game with paint contractors and general contractors or owners where they're like, okay, we're going to clock in all your people. We're going to clock out your people. We're going to make sure you're doing this. You got to get it signed off every week. But at the end of the day, they still really question, was that guy really touching up all this stuff or working on those patches or whatever? Was that really happening? And so there's always this discrepancy of like, is this contractor being honest and fair with me? And so typically, if you look at majority of the time and material or ticket work, typically the general contractor negotiates that rate down. If your relationship is very good and you delivered on that project at a high beyond expectations, typically I feel like if you get paid on all that, there's got to be money in there. So I think that there's more than just you did a good job. But I'll say the higher that payment is, especially when you get paid when like there's not money in that job, it really speaks to how well you did in building that relationship, creating that trust.
You say there's not money in that job?
So there could be sometimes there's not money, there's no money in jobs. What I mean by that is like they kind of went over budget. They've already had a lot of changes that they paid other trades, and they're coming down to the end going like, hey, we don't have any more money left. Like the owner stiffed us on some changes. We had some delays that cost us some liquidated damages. So their money that they originally had in contingency might be sucked up and used other places. But when they actually take money out of their own pocket and say like, hey, I still want to pay you because you guys were men of your word and you did everything and you pulled us out of this, that's when you know, that's how you can measure how good your relationship is because this is costing them. When it's not costing them, it's easier for them to hand that check over and be like, hey man, good job. But when it's going to cost them something, that's when you really know you have a great relationship with somebody.
How do you, so got it, tracking with that. What do I do with that information, or what do you teach your team to do with that information of like when it's not happening or when it is happening?
Exactly what you said. When it's happening or when it's not happening, you always do it. And what I mean by that is you show up every day the same way. At the end of it, you're going to know what kind of client or what kind of person you're working with. And so what we always say is like, we're going to show up, we're going to get the job done, we're going to do the best of our ability. Even if they're not paying us, we're still going to do it. But we won't work with that person again, or we won't work for that company again. And so that's where we take it is like, we're going to be consistent because we can only control ourselves. We can't control what everybody else does. But once we find out who people are and how they're going to treat us, then we move in whatever direction, whether we want to engage them more because, man, they treated us fairly. We respect how they handled this, or B, we're going to part ways and not work with a company like that.
I was wondering more like, that makes sense also, but that's not like it's almost like your score on the test. Okay, we got a D, we're done with that person, versus like, it's not like hey, we track. It sounds like it's more of a qualitative metric. It's an indicator, but there could be other factors that you're looking at as well.
We're looking at it holistically. We're looking at actually like what is the data? Like we had this much in extras and how much did they pay? How much do we think they should have paid? Right. And then we're also listening to what they're saying, of how they're explaining of, where their money is, how much they can pay. It's a cumulative picture. It's not just black and white.
I have a couple other questions before we move to our wrap up questions here. That you want to celebrate misses, not just the wins. Can you give me a miss or something that cost you real money or even a relationship, and how you look back on that now and say that led to X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, I remember early in my career, it was a client that we'd been working with, and I say we, Cherry, had been working with, and they passed that relationship on to me. And we were working with this team on a school, and the person I was dealing with, the PM, her and I just had a lot of conflict. And I was pretty immature about the situation, and I pretty much let my emotions get to me. And I sent an email like telling her how bad she was. And this is where all the places she missed. And if she was standing there next to me, I bet you she was probably crying because it was a pretty rough email. And there was a lot of blowback because of that. I let my pride get in the way. I let my ego get in the way. And ultimately, we didn't lose a relationship from it, but we got really close to losing it. And we were able to salvage it. But it was something that, I always tell people, if you're going to send an email, use it for transaction purposes to document things. But if there's any emotion to it, like write it down, read it, and then delete it. Like don't send it. Because if it's an emotional conversation, pick up the phone and try to like think about it for a day at least, and then maybe have that conversation the next day, because we can get so fired up because we believe what we believe is right. And so that was my biggest mistake, was I let my emotions get to me. It almost cost us a lot.
I saw that I think it was just this last quarter, you guys acquired two other companies, and I'm interested in what you were saying earlier on, like hey, start in accounting or start out in the field, or like work your way up. How do you acquire a vision painting or a masterpiece painting and do similar things to bring them into the Cherry culture? You know what I mean? Like it's easy if you hire one person, but when you bring in a whole entity, how does that work?
Well, we're still in the process of that, but luckily we have a robust HR team. And so we're going to go up there and train them on specific practices that we do. We also have a welcoming video that's basically talks a little bit about our foundation and our history, because we feel like the history is our foundation of our company. We will have a core values training. It's just small steps of training and getting the team together. It takes time though, especially with like vision. It was a larger transaction. So the roadmap for that is a little bit longer, but it is just having it mapped out. It changes because it was amazing. Like this was our plan, and then we got into it a couple of weeks, and we're like, oh, we got to change this plan. We've got to speed this up and slow this down. And so there is no right or wrong answer, but at the end, you have to get that training in of going like, this is why these core values matter to us. This is how we use it in our systems. So just teaching them the process and systems.
I don't know how much you dive into AI and play with it and are excited by it or fearful of it. How are you like stewarding Cherry Coatings into this like technology wave we've been hit with it for like the last 2 years very intensely, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down. But what is Cherry Coatings doing about all the stuff that is now possible, and how are you deciding to invest in that with people and resources and all that?
So I'm high on AI. I have seen the power of it that I use in my everyday life. Um, we have a CIO, Chief Information Officer. He is really into creating that roadmap of our technology and what that looks like. And a big portion of that roadmap is AI. We've built our own in-house large language learning model, basically under the Copilot, but we also use other platforms. We're creating a bot or agents. So we have our HR agent, we have our PM agent, we have our estimating agent, we have our safety agent, we have our lawyer agent, like all these different agents that basically communicate to the brain up top. We think that AI is transformational, and we are trying to utilize it the best we can. We do see that it hallucinates sometimes and it makes mistakes, but there's also some major benefits from using it. So we are pushing it. We are training on it, teaching people how to ask prompts and create instructions. But we're also trying to prevent it from just going wild. So we're trying to create structure. And what that means is we don't want people just going on any platform, sending our information out, asking questions about the company. We want it to be secure and within our own model where it's somewhat limited, but also protected.
Yeah, I mean the ability to produce apps now is just like, have you invested in like custom, like Tesla a long time ago before AI, they have like a literally a custom operating system from their production to HR to sales. It's all integrated. I'm assuming that that's one of the benefits that I would see of a larger commercial painting company in acquiring other companies that have not invested in the technology and the architecture. Is that something that you guys are already have or are seeing as like this is a strategic lever that we're going to invest in?
So we have a what we call the portal, which the portal really houses like time off, project management stuff, accounts payable stuff. I'm talking, it is a robust portal where we create vision, our VTOs, our rocks, have our L10 meetings, which is an EOS meeting. We have all that built out. But this is what's amazing. When we hired the CIO and he really started building out the roadmap and kind of trying to put everything that we had together and like, hey, this is how it needs to go together. The portal is, I'm not going to say being removed, but I will say a lot of it is going to transfer over into other systems and processes. Why that's exciting is we spend a lot of time and energy maintaining that portal. Like we have people that are literally full time keeping it updated and making it sure it's working all the time. So we have built custom softwares because there wasn't a lot of softwares for painting contractors, and we needed very specific metrics that we needed to hit and goals we were trying to achieve. And so we did a lot of in-house stuff. But now with our CIO and seeing the bigger roadmap and the vision that he's created for that, we're seeing some simplicity coming down the road where we can actually utilize third-party softwares that we believe will help accomplish and put everything together and help communicate with each other a lot seamlessly and potentially eliminate some double entry and then also eliminate so many platforms that we're working off of. So we're excited. We'll see where it goes.
This has been super fun. I've got my 3 closing questions for you. Book recommendations. You have 3 book recommendations for the listeners.
Well, I guess you don't have to read Never Split the Difference, but I recommend you read it, even though you got some good little excerpts from it. I think, I'm going to go very basic here. Atomic Habits, like it's so simple. It's such it's a book about goals, but the way he presents it in the detail he gets into, I think that if people actually read that book and implement it, they're going to change their lives because they're going to create good habits. And so that's a classic that is always beneficial. Another one I like is Essentialism. He actually wrote a new one. I think it's called Essentialism 2 or something like that. But basically what that is the disciplined pursuit of no. And I think that a lot of times in life, we say yes to so many things that we get bogged down and we don't have the time to spend it where we need to, whether that's with God, with family, or with the employees that you're trying to train. And so I think the perspective that he teaches about figuring out, hey, what's your vision? Where do you want to go? What's the most important thing you can do? And then everything stems off of that. And you basically schedule success in there because, hey, these are the most important things and these are what I'm trying to accomplish. And you schedule it in that in your calendar, and things that are outside of that, try to say no. And you'll gain margin that'll help you get to where you want to be.
Love that. Yeah. And Essentialism, I think Greg McCowan or something.
Greg McCowan. That's right.
The one thing I was just I just got this book, Jim Collins, Good to Great and Built to
Oh, Jim
Last.
Collins. Yeah. Good to Great.
This is his newest book. It comes out in April, I believe. But this is What to Make of a Life. So just your story in general. I got this delivered yesterday. But Alan Page, are you familiar with Alan Page?
No.
He's was a defensive lineman for Minnesota, and then he ended up becoming a Minnesota Supreme Court justice. But anyways, like a super quick summary of the book is like you have these like cliffs in life where like major change, or like you're forced to make a difference. And so obviously you being in the major leagues, and like he talks about professional athletes and like what comes after that. And then other people have, careers that either are forced to be in because they're employed by some company and the company shuts down and they got to pivot or whatever, but how to like find that fire and the passion to like do something that you are uniquely encoded to do. But anyways, that just when I was reading this in the last 2 days and prepping for your interview, I was like, ooh, this is like might be a book that you'd want to check out.
I'd love to.
Movie or show. And this is like just for fun. What's I don't have a lot of time to watch movies, and I don't try to carve out time, but there's always the time with family or with Natalie where I'm like, hey, we got nothing going on. It's a Friday night. And so I'm slowly compiling a list of shows and movies that are not the sleeper hits, if you will.
Well, that's good. My wife she loves watching TV shows or whatever you want to call them, like on Netflix or whatever. But a lot of the shows that she likes, I just can't get into. But, I'm probably just going to go with the classic here. Maybe many people talk about it, but Gladiator or Braveheart. I mean, those to me, like, I just love some of the things that they stand for, how they carried themselves. Those were great movies.
I mean, yeah, Braveheart is Gladiator. Have you seen the second Gladiator?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah. Just super, super good cinematography and storytelling. I love them. And finally, if someone wants to get in touch with you or connect at a deeper level, what's your recommended platform or method that they reach out?
Yeah, I need to do a better job of this, but LinkedIn is probably my most active. I don't do Instagram. I have a profile. I don't do Facebook. I have a profile, but I'm not active on it. So LinkedIn, and if you send me a message, don't be surprised if I don't respond in a while, but I'll try to do better.
Awesome. Well, Rocky, this was very, very fun. Thank you. I know I got some value out of it, and I'm sure the listeners will as well, but appreciate your time, and this has been good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kiefer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes, the movie list, you can visit my website, chriskiefer.com, for all the details on the show, and also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.